it's better. First of all, I have to say that this has been an extraordinary experience last 2 days. Thank you to Mariana, thank you to Panacha for helping us to do this. Every session has been extraordinary. I think this is probably the most important session right now in terms of our survival as a species, but also survival for life on the planet. And while this is going on, we have in the United States a debate right now, even questioning climate change. And the dialogue is at a level that is so abysmal and so tragic. And if this kind of conversation can live on the internet for a while, it might be influential in changing some minds. Because what we are in the midst of is a catastrophic emergency right now. It's an extraordinary panel. I have nothing to add to this great expertise that you have brought. But let's kind of look at the big picture, as I've learned from all of my esteemed colleagues here. So, according to the current scientific model, the universe came from a hypothetical Big Bang 13.8 billion years ago. And our planet somehow emerged through a series of very, you can call it accidents or synchronicities, it's your choice, about 5 billion years ago. Life on this planet, as you just mentioned, began about 3.8 billion years or so. And it began with microorganisms, actually. You know, the first microorganisms, often referred to as chemolitho-autotrophic hyperthermophiles, which were our ancestors, chemo-autotrophic hyperthermophiles. So these are chemicals that had learned to reproduce themselves. Autotrophic hyperthermophiles lived on the rims of volcanoes. And then this life evolved. But what happened even before the microorganisms? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll try my best to be accurate, is the evolution of plant life, which is photosynthesis. And if you look at photosynthesis, one thing that everybody agrees, quantum biologists, it's a quantum phenomenon. You know, these are these photons coming from the sun, and they use every quantum mechanism ultimately to produce mass, biomass, as you say. So you have photons coming from the sun producing life on this planet. And then you have this whole evolutionary journey from plants to microbes to fish to amphibians to animals to primates and then humans. And all along the way, humans, as you just said, 200,000 years, but actually the damage has been only in 150, 200 years. So here's a species which is interesting. It's so divine and it's so diabolical at the same time that we got what we call the fall from grace, the apple that fell in the Garden of Eden, the apple of knowledge, you might say, made us a schizophrenic species. And we are full of contradiction and paradox. We have divine feelings, but we also have diabolical feelings. And we have done immense damage to cosmic evolution, biological evolution, that took us 13.8 billion years to get here. And now we're trying to fix it. And actually, if people listen to experts on this panel, we know how to fix it. Okay, so given my rudimentary knowledge of what are the big steps we need to take, The first is what you mentioned, marshlands, coastal areas, because marshlands do many things. They harbor biodiversity, they harbor marine life, and they interface with land life, and they also act as buffers to storms and produce a tremendous amount of oxygen. And those marshlands are the most important part of our ecosystem right now, as you rightly said. The second thing from what I've learned is the whole idea of agroforestry. So you actually combine forestry, regeneration with agriculture. And the third thing I've heard over the years, when it was brought up, is clean energy, but also distributed energy. So you don't have a central location producing energy. The more distributed it is, the safer it is, and so on. And we have the means to do that. And then you have a new look at transportation, clean transportation, distributed transportation, mass transportation. Our current transportation system is totally, messed up. And finally, you have, from what I've learned, the restoration of the rights of indigenous people, because they have a different attitude or a relationship with nature. So these are 5 things that actually people talk about. And you can look it up on the internet or wherever, everybody agrees. So why is it not happening? It's not happening. I was last year at the World Economic Forum. There were all these experts flying on private jets to talk about climate change. There's a lot of hypocrisy in political systems, in the United Nations, and everywhere we look at, and it's not happening. We know the facts, and yet we haven't made that change. So that brings me to the conversation before this session. The conversation was about emotions, and it's interesting. I was thinking the word emotion literally means energy, motion in a way. And emotions are very powerful. And if you look again at some of the ideas in evolutionary biology right now, and I'm part of that conversation right now, that is questioning Darwinian evolution as random mutations in natural selection, but perhaps evolution driven by consciousness. Because if photosynthesis is quantum phenomenon, if our sensory processes, olfaction is quantum mechanical, we know that. Bird navigation is quantum, we know that. Processing of visual information is quantum, and it's soon becoming obvious that all sensory processing is quantum, which is fascinating because it means everything happens all at once, superposition. On a macro level, how does a baby get produced? Okay, you have millions of things happening in morphogenesis and differentiation simultaneously. You have one cell, pluripotential cell. It differentiates into your eyes, your nose, your brain, your genitalia, your fingernails, all simultaneously. What is orchestrating that? And what is doing that? We now have explanations. Epigenetics. What is epigenetics? It's actually experience modulating gene activity. That's what epigenetics is. Any experience. So you link sensory processing with quantum mechanics, which is the simultaneity of everything. How does a human body think thoughts, play a piano, kill germs, remove toxins, make a baby all at the same time? That's not a linear process. That's a superposition of possibilities, differentiating through what we call non-local correlation into this immense diversity, which is present in every cell of our body. Your cells are not just simple biological units that are computational. Your cells are ecosystems. Every cell is an ecosystem. Every organ is an ecosystem. The human body is an ecosystem. And nature is an ecosystem. And the cosmos is an ecosystem. There is no such thing as me and the world. So the problem I see that, and also in evolution, those who understand that consciousness is driving evolution through sensory experience, if consciousness is driving evolution through a sensory process, which is quantum, then you have to think that consciousness is driving evolution. Whatever that is, non-local, outside of space-time, can go on. But if consciousness is guiding the evolution, and evolution is driven by consciousness, then in our experience of existence, sensations come first, feelings come second, and thoughts come later, and then the world of doing. So we start with being, which is all possibilities, then feeling. Feeling tied to a sensation becomes emotion. Emotion is a sensation that's tied to a feeling. We say, I feel this, because it's a bodily, visceral experience. Emotions are visceral experiences. So the problem I see is we, first of all, have a colonial interpretation of the universe. There's me and there's the universe. There's me, the biological organism, and then the environment. And that in itself is the wrong starting point. And the reason why we need to actually resurrect the rights of indigenous people as one of the most important things is they have a relationship with the biosphere which is emotional, which is at the feeling level. And you can give all the facts in the world. And we have amazing facts here, but unless those facts are anchored in a feeling, and you have coined the right word because it involves feeling, and it involves emotions, and it involves a shift in our paradigm where we don't even use the word environment. It's a terrible word because it means I am an isolated, closed system interacting with the environment. I'm a closed system. Starts with the wrong premise. So if you go to the open system reality, there is no such thing as the environment. Those trees are your lungs. If they didn't breathe, you wouldn't breathe. You know? So why do we call them trees? They're my lungs. I need them to breathe, and they need you to breathe. You know, you put a plant in a vacuum, it dies. You put a rabbit in a vacuum, it dies. You put them both together, they thrive. So why do we call those trees? They're our lungs. This earth is our body, recycling. This air is our breath. The oceans and rivers are our circulation. And the atoms in the body were made in the crucible of burning stars. That's where we come from. We are stardust beings who somehow acquired self-awareness. You know, somehow these atoms made in the crucible of burning stars, now we are told 2 trillion galaxies, and now we are also, I've heard recently that half the atoms in your body are not even from the Milky Way galaxy. They come from other galaxies, sucked into our galaxy by some phenomenon called gravitational wind. So who are we? We are the whole universe in ecstatic motion. You know, as Rumi said, don't think small. You know, you are the universe in ecstatic motion. This is the walking universe right now, made from stardust and self-aware. And what a wasted opportunity when we engage in this banal, trivial, idiotic political dialogue that's happening in the world. Idiotic and insane. And people... and this conversation needs to be out there in a very magnificent and highly publicized effort, so we can shift this relationship that we have with the universe. We are the universe.
Absolutely.
There's no, and so is every sentient being, the universe, in a different modulation of expression. And what we call the subject-object split, which is artificial, but it actually, the subject-object split creates emotions. And when we disconnect with our source, it's when we experience anxiety, it's when we experience anger, it's when we experience hostility and guilt and shame and depression. It's all because we have lost connection with our source. And when we connect with our source, then there's empathy, which means we feel the suffering of others. There's compassion, there's the desire to alleviate suffering, and ultimately there's love. And love, not just in a melodramatic, sentimental, romantic idea, that's not love. Love is the ultimate truth at the heart of creation. It is what we call knowing that we came from a source where we are all one. And that love is the ultimate truth at the heart of action, is meaningless, and action without love is irrelevant. Between action and love, that's called karma yoga. So it's back to yoga, connecting to the source.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you, everyone. I know we could have gone even deeper. I know now there's a lot of things we wanted to share, but I just thank you very much for creating this womb. We understand that we're the womb of the world, and each and every one of us has a role to play. Let's play and upgrade the dream, as Deepak would say so often. So thank you very much. I know there will be closing remarks by Mariana, Deepak, Punacha, but thank you for joining us. Thank you for making nature first. I hope you understand that, because nature is first. We are human nature, we're the universe in static motion.
By the way, let's make sure that this conversation is recycled over and over and actually amplified for further conversations. There's
Thank
a
you,
privilege to do
Ishan.
that.
Make sure.
So we started